as far as
I know some of you are still filtering in, and you're not late, you're right on time. My name is Susanna Cates, and I'm the rector here at All Saints Episcopal Church. I welcome you here tonight. You honor us with your presence, and we are very glad to be a part of tonight's presentation. We thank Diane for being here, for bringing Mallory to us, and for bringing her story to us. On behalf of All Saints Church, I want everybody here to know that all of you are welcome, and that this is a safe place. Regardless of your faith tradition, your age, any way that you or your families identify, this is a safe place where you are heard, where your stories are respected, and where you are always welcomed. And I am grateful to be a part of the movement that brings us here tonight. At this time, I ask Anthony Fiore to come and say a few words about tonight's presentation and about what brings him here.
All right, so I'm not as eloquent as Susanna, so I wrote my speech down this evening. So good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Fiore. I'm a member of SPF Parents United. I want to thank all of you for coming to see Diane tonight and welcome Mallory's Army into our community. Before we begin, I'd like to take a few minutes to first recognize, thank, and welcome some attendees in the audience. First and foremost, thank you to Reverend Susanna Cates and All Saints Episcopal Church for donating this space tonight and also hosting us. Thank you to Mayor Smith. Mayor Marr could not be here tonight. She was scheduled. She was in Atlantic City. Chief Trigo, Chief Conley for your support. Thank you to Clint Dixon and the Fanwood DPW, as well as the BOE for helping with chairs tonight. I want to also welcome some distinguished guests, and we have a bunch of them, and I thank you all for coming. Superintendent Dr. Hayes, Principals Dr. Dumaresque of Park, Dr. Holloway of Terrell, Dr. Slocum of McGinn, Dr. Wetherell of Coles, Colleen Hubert of Evergreen, Justin Fiore, no relation, of School 1. I get that a lot, by the way, no relation. Scott Bortnick of Brunner, and Assistant Principal Ryan Miller of SPF High School. Welcome to BOE members Evan Murray and Amy Boroff, also Deb Murray, who got a late ticket tonight. And anti-bullying specialists Amanda Wolf of Terrell and April Chastain of Evergreen, as well as Marianne Degnan of St. Bart's, okay? I also want to welcome Tracy Crane from the YMCA, Dana Schoenbach from the JCC, Janet Sarkos from Caring Connect, and Diane's guests Gabe, Sherry, and Kingsley. I also want to say a brief thank you to my wife and my daughters, Kayla and Mackenzie. Thank you for supporting me and having my back with this. Kayla, most importantly, and Mom told me not to do this, but thank you for teaching me. Thank you for teaching me to be an upstander and not a bystander. Your feedback is the reason we're here tonight. Parents, don't ever think that you're too old or set in your ways to learn from your children. They're not always pains in the asses. Right? I want to also say thank you to SPF Parents United, especially Jeff Kowalczyk, Jen Stern, Debbie Canterman, Nicole Kaplan, Pam Estereca, Maureen Germinder, Felton and Jill Jones, Lucy Burst, and Allison Canarack. Also, thank you to all the members who put their name on the Sign Up Genius tonight and brought something. Without you here to help, this night never would have come to fruition. Last, but certainly not least, I want to thank Diane and Seth Grossman, Jen Stillwell, and the entire Mallory's Army team for being here tonight. The fact that you've come here this evening to our community to share your story, Mallory's story, in hopes that no parent here must ever suffer what you have suffered, is one of the bravest, kindest, and most courageous things I've ever seen. Mallory's Army is a strong voice for all the children and the families that have been victims of bullying. It is a fight for hope, awareness, and change so that no child must endure the pain of bullying. Diane responded to a parent on Facebook today, and I'm going to read it out loud. I wanted to share it. She said, "Sometimes I would like to crawl up in a ball, but imagine the world without people who knock down barriers." Diane, you keep knocking down the barriers, and we will be right there fighting the fight with you. Please welcome Diane Grossman.
Give you a little bit of my southern charm here tonight. I don't know about you, but I am sweating like a sinner in Sunday school. Let me tell you. Wow. I mean, if God's sending us a message that we all need to be here, and He's going to make it really, he or she is going to make it really uncomfortable for nights, we hear you. Okay. All right. So, while I appreciate the applause and I appreciate the thank yous, the real round of applause is for everybody that came here tonight. So give yourself a huge round of applause. It's about showing up. Absolutely. To my Jen, you know. And to my husband, who allows me to make him really uncomfortable in an effort to really make a difference. So, and truly to the Scotch Plains Fanwood Parents Group, congratulations to you. You saw that there was an epidemic. You saw that something needed to be done. And of course here tonight, for everybody that's here, it takes a community. And by you guys being here tonight, you represent the definition of community. We used to say that it takes the village to raise a child. And then all of a sudden we gave them cell phones and decided that we didn't need to show up or be that community anymore. I like to think that we are part of a movement that is that community, and that we have realized that the village mantra still stands and it's important. So tonight I'm going to give you a couple of pointers. This is not, you're not going to leave here with a solution for your children. You're going to leave here hopefully empowered and feeling good about the next stages of making a difference. If at any point you have a question, we're roundtabling this. Every child is different, every scenario is different. You have my permission to email me should you have a specific question around your child. Don't hesitate to email us and reach out. But in the middle of this talk tonight, if you have a question or something, please raise your hand. We can't make a difference if you don't speak up, right? We don't know what we don't know. So while you're sitting there quiet on your hands, afraid to say anything, I want you to raise your hand and speak up. So a couple housekeeping points before we get truly started. I mentioned what you're going to learn today and what you're not going to learn today. This is very simple. If your child has a bachelor's degree in Snapchat, you better have a master's or your child shouldn't be using it. There, I'm done. Good night. It's that simple. Your children should not be using something that you don't know about. So that is my soapbox on social media. Yes, I believe that social media is an important tool. It's what brought you all here today, more than likely. It's what brought you to know me. So I think that you'll never hear me say no to social media. You will hear me say be responsible. Social media is your child's coffee shop. Social media is your kid's bowling alley, your roller skating rink, and your mall. Guess what happens at the bowling alley? Guess what happens at the mall? At some point it closes. My dad used to say nothing good happens after 11 o'clock. He was right. That didn't count me sneaking out at 11:02, but true, nothing good happens after a certain time. Your children are growing up in a virtual world that is new to us. Be responsible. At some point, the mall has to close. And you, unfortunately, have to be a parent and not a friend. I know that it's very uncomfortable, and we like to believe that if we're closer to our friends and closer to our children, that they'll come to us, they'll confide in us, they'll tell us what's going on. Mallory is an example. Everybody will tell you that knew Mallory, that knew me. Mallory and I were super close. She told me a fraction of what was going on. Your children will not confide in you. First of all, they're embarrassed. Second of all, they think they can handle it. And third of all, you're a parent. You don't want to hang out with your mom all day. They don't want to hang out with you all day. Contrary to what you believe, you are not that cool. You're not. So, your kids have a bachelor's degree, you need a master's degree. It's that simple. It is your responsibility to be in a perpetual state of self-education. If there is a program that is offered at your school, you need to be there. It is not fair for the administrations to put together the programs, and the number one thing that I hear from schools is, we'd have you, Diane, but parents don't show up. Whose fault is that? I understand you're busy, I know that you're working, I know all of that. The schools are doing what they can to provide you with programs. You need to show up. Even if you only walk away with a small piece of it, show up. Learn from it. You have to be perpetually educating yourself. You don't know what you don't know. So it's important that you show up and be present. I think tonight is evidence for everybody that is a school administrator or a school teacher or involved in their PTA. I think that this shows that your community cares and that you did show up. So congratulations to that. It is your job tonight and forever to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. You all suffer, myself included, from something called not my child syndrome. Newsflash. Somebody in this room, your child is the bully. Somebody in this room, your child is a victim. I used to say to people when I worked before, in my previous life, it's not a disease to get lice, it's a disease to keep it. The same thing here. It's not a disease to have a child that's a bully. We all misbehave sometimes. How many of you have been driving down, late for soccer practice, somebody pulls you over, knocks you out of the way, and the next thing you know, you're giving them the real famous New Jersey wave. One finger. So, it's not a sin, it's a sin not to deal with it. So, be part of the solution, not part of the problem. When a school administrator calls you and says, Mrs. Jones, little Johnny wasn't so nice today, this is what he did. Your job is not to immediately start defending the behavior. Stop. It's not okay. It took a lot of courage and a lot of responsibility for the administration to call you and say, listen, we've got a problem here. Listen to what they have to say and work together to find the solutions to filter and change this behavior. If you don't deal with it in 3rd grade, you will be dealing with it in high school, I can assure you. So, be a part of the solution, not the problem. Get involved. God, get involved. You know, your Board of Education is what, 8, 10 members? How do you know the culture of your community if you don't show up for the meetings? They are passing laws, bylaws, programs, curriculum. They're spending your money. After it's already been passed, it's too late for you to start pitchforking it. Show up, be a part of the problem, solution. Be a part of it, right? Like your Board of Education, they're volunteers. If they are able to sit on the board and be a part of it, then so should you. And if you work late on Wednesdays and that happens to be the day of the meeting, change your schedule. It's that simple. Many of us work from home, many of us has flexible schedules. Show up, be a part of it. You'd be surprised at what you can learn. Next piece of advice for parents, take back your PTA. I know, you love the attaboys when it's Teacher Appreciation Week and you have literally spent $8,000 on a full catered breakfast for your teachers. Guess what? They appreciate it. They really do. They'd appreciate more if you were involved in the programming. And stop allowing your children to show up unsupervised, unmanaged, right? Be a part of the solution. It is your job as your PTA to take it back. Get involved with programming that matters. Teachers can buy their own muffins. And by the way, if you want to have teacher appreciation, I guarantee you there's plenty of small family-owned restaurants that would donate muffins, donate the coffee, and all they are looking for is a little bit of attaboy and thank you. You don't need to spend $8,000 on a catered breakfast for them. They would appreciate more curriculum support and help. Teachable moments. You just got a phone call that little Johnny is bullying somebody on the playground. You just got a phone call. Again, not your job to defend his behavior, make excuses. Well, his dad, he had a bad soccer practice. His dad and I are breaking up. We're having this problem. You're just excuses. It's a teachable moment. Find out what's going on and get to the root of the problem. Use teachable moments. If you catch your kid doing something online that they're not supposed to be doing, put the phones down, have a conversation. And trust me, it's much easier to have a conversation when you're proactive than when you're reactive and trying to figure out what's really going on. You want to have a conversation with your daughter before she gets the text, send nudes. And yes, it's a thing. I guarantee you, every single one of the kids sitting in here going, oh God, she knows. She knows. Yes, I know. Send nudes. It's a thing. And by the way, they don't even have to write the word send nudes. They've got emojis for it. They can have an entire conversation with smiley faces and eggplants. And the OK symbol. And I'll let you figure out what that means. The OK symbol with a pointing finger. I'll let you figure out what that means. And by the way, it's your 12-year-old that's doing it. They know what KYS is. Do you? Kill yourself. Yeah. Perpetual state of self-education. You need to know what the symbols mean. You need to know what it is, because as soon as you figure it out, they change the game. Teachable moments. You are not going to get a cure for bullying tonight. I'm sorry. I wish I could. Every child is different. Every line is gray. You're not going to get that. What you are going to get is an opportunity to go home and have a hopefully heartfelt conversation with your child and with your family so that you can be a part of the solution. Tonight is not about solving a problem. It's a step in the right direction. And the reason why I say that is we need to move forward. And that's what Mallory's mission is all about, is moving forward. You cannot go to the store, buy a bag of flour, and come home and have a cake. You can't even go to the store and buy a Betty Crocker cake mix and come home and have a cake. Right? So why do we think that bullying is a one-and-done scenario? Several ingredients to have a recipe for success. And that's what I think tonight is about, is this is a step in moving forward. Any questions? No? Okay, good. Schools. All right, so all of your parents that think I'm getting ready to rip the school a new one, you were sadly disappointed. I'm not going to. Your school is, once again, they are just a small recipe in your element of success. What would I say to the schools? Based on Mallory's experience, it takes a lot of courage for a child to come forward and say, hey, I am absolutely hated at school. Think about it. Think about how much courage it takes to actually admit to a grown adult, I feel like I am the absolute most hated person in this building. So what I would say to every single administrator, teacher, Board of Ed member, anybody that is involved with these children, give them some credit for being a victim and coming forward. Have a little bit of compassion. Stop using words like, well, thank you so much, little Johnny, for coming forward. We'll investigate it and we'll get back to you. Do you know what the word investigate to a child means? It means I don't believe a damn thing that you have to say, but I'm going to go ask every single one of your friends, including the person that you're tattling on, I'm going to ask them, they're going to know that they told and you just made it worse. You can say to a child, thank you so much for coming forward. It took a lot of courage for you to tell me how you feel at school, and I am so sorry that this doesn't feel like a safe place for you. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a few minutes to think about it. Do you mind if I ask some questions? Who do you think I should talk to? What do you think the solution is for what's going on? Guess what? Anthony said it. You can learn a lot from kids. Why don't you stop being right and start listening to the CEOs of the hallways? Because that's exactly what they are. You think you're running the building? Nope. They are. Every 6, 7th and 8th grade girl who thinks that she's the most popular one in that building is running it. You just think that you're in charge. I would say it like my husband. I'm the chief spending officer. He's the chief financial officer. He thinks he's in charge. I'm in charge. Same thing with our girls and our boys, right? Listen to what the kids have to say. Ask them, what do you think I should do? How do you think I should handle this? What would you like for me to do? Who do you think I should talk to? Give them a voice. The best thing a victim wants is a voice. It took them all night long with that pit in their stomach to come forward and say, this is happening to me. Give them a chance to talk. Don't be so quick to solve their problems. Create a culture in your building that gives you a bird's eye view of what's going on. Let me tell you something. This is not a talk about bullying. It's not a talk about suicide. This is a talk about the epidemic that every single one of our children are facing. You want to know what's going on in your building? Mass shootings. How many of us just lost our mind on February 14th when 17 children were gunned down? I was doing a talk on Facebook on the 8th-month anniversary of my daughter's death when I was interrupted by the constant messages, only to find out that another mass shooting has happened. Mass shootings, the drug epidemic, suicide, self-harm, because remember, not every child is successful in dying by suicide. There's plenty of children who cut or self-strangulate in order to escape their pain. So this isn't just about suicide. Connect the dots. Create environments where you can truly have a bird's eye view of what's going on. Create scenarios in the lunchroom where you teach children how to have common ground. See, our children are in a position where they are socially awkward because their world is virtual. You and I don't understand it, but they do. You've got to create scenarios in your building that allows children to slowly learn to communicate with one another. That communication, you will see the child that is being excluded, intimidated. Allow your lunch aides to be involved in part of your curriculum planning. They are the soldiers on the ground. You can get a wealth of information from your lunch aides. The most unappreciated member of your school system has the most amount of information. Imagine that. Imagine that. Pay attention to your lunch aides. They truly know what's going on. And by the way, it's not profiling. When they tell you that little Johnny's an asshole, forgive me, God. Really. Listen, he's got a list on it about me. Trust me, he or she has a list. When the lunch aide tells you that little Johnny is part of the problem, it's your job to listen to her or him. Because he probably is. And I'm not saying throw the book at little Johnny. I'm saying get little Johnny the help that he needs. Because he's probably suffering from fear and anxiety, which is the reason why he's the bully. And lastly, use my story in your school. Yes, I'll get it. I'm going to address the white elephant to every administrator and school superintendent. Yeah, I'm suing my school. And I know that's very uncomfortable for you to hear. I'm holding them accountable for the role that they played in my daughter's death. It's true. Learn from them. They made some serious mistakes. Learn from them. You know what we all learned from the bus accident on Route 80? We all learned that that bus driver was not qualified to be driving that bus. And guess what you all did? You came in the next day and you immediately started going through your HR records to make sure that your bus drivers were safe. Do the same thing. Do the same thing. Use my story to make your school better. That's what we are. We have come together as a community. All right, so that's my soapbox on that. I know, right? All right, so you all got a handout tonight. How many of you have ever seen an HIV document? Look at that. Administrators, pay attention to that. I see maybe 10 hands. In a room full of almost 250, 300 people, maybe 10 people have seen this document. Now, some school administrations don't want you to see this. Some think, oh, don't tell them. I'm actually going to make your job really, really easy. Turn to page 2. Turn to page 2. Page 2. Save a tree and share. Save a tree and share. You should have one per family, not per person. Page 2. Right there. The definition of bullying. The definition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, also known as HIB. There it is in black and white. There's your definition. Everybody likes to have their different interpretation of what HIV is. There it is in black and white, spelled out for you. You don't have the right to go to the school and pitchfork your perception of what HIV is when you've got a documentation of what says it is. Off school grounds. Sadly, administration, I'm going to agree with you in this. You should not be held accountable when a child bullies another child on a Saturday in July. I didn't write it, they did. If you don't like it, write to your senators. Write to your assembly. There is absolutely no reason the school should be held accountable for something that happens on a Saturday in July. But this piece of paper says that they are. You know why? Because on a Saturday in July, you can sit on that information on September 3rd, you can storm into the principal's office and you can say, little Johnny bullied my child on this, this, and this, and by this law, which by the way is not a law, it's a statute, they have to address it. Now, you've lost your teachable moment, right? Because literally, it's been how many, 6 weeks? You've lost an opportunity to address it with another parent. I don't know what the fear is with parents who have a child that's a victim and why you have a problem picking up the phone and calling the parent, because more than likely you're going to be surprised by the response that you get. Yes, there is going to be a small amount of parents that hang up on you, curse at you, scream at you. Most parents are going to go, I don't know what you're talking about. She did what? What did she write? What did she send? Oh, hold on. And the child upstairs starts crying because she's not crying because of what she did, she's crying because she got caught. And now you have a teachable moment with both parents coming together and saying, this behavior's not okay. Use it as an opportunity. Off school grounds, bullying. I've heard some school systems say, well, if it's not covered under sexual preference, race, or a protected category, we can't do anything about it. It's not true. Every child has something called distinguishing characteristics. A distinguishing characteristic: curly hair, blonde hair, frizzy hair. Every child has a distinguishing characteristic. The statute was written that way so that every single child is protected. So for school systems that tell you, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I would love to be able to help you, but because your child is not a protected category, I have to put it in the code of conduct. You now have the document that says otherwise. I could teach an entire 2-week class on HIV and all of the things that are there. It is your job to self-educate. If you don't understand the language that is in that document, spend $250. I'm sure there's an attorney that will walk you through it. You need this information before it's too late. See, I made the mistake. I didn't know what HIV was. I'd never seen the document. And by the time I needed to know this information, it was June 13th. My daughter died the next day. It was too late. Don't be me. You've got it. Arm yourselves. Be educated. And when you know this information, here's the interesting thing that happens. You no longer have an emotional conversation. You have a great conversation. When you are educated, you can go to your administration, you can go to your HIV coordinator, you can go to your principal or vice principal or whatever the chain of command is, and you can say, Mr. and Mrs. Principal, I understand this is what's going on. This is my interpretation of this document. Help me understand what's going on here. The schools don't want emotional parents coming and pitchforking their schools. You get nothing done with that. But an educated parent that is prepared to come and find a solution for their child, they'll have that conversation with you all day. Can I get an amen? Amen. Right, so I told you I'd bring religion into it. So that's all I'm going to say about HIV. It's too complicated of a subject. You need to self-educate, you need to do your homework, you need to be involved in it. I will tell you that it used to be that if you filed an HIV or you had a complaint, that it had to go before the Board of Education, and then the Board of Education would vote on that. As of July the 1st, 2018, that is no longer the case. The principal now has the right to decide whether it's code of conduct or HIV. Yes?
Just quickly, is the HIV different through the states, or is...
Yes, every state is different. That's a great question, because we cover, you know, we have followers all over. I'm very lucky. We have followers all over the United States. And yes, HIV is really a New Jersey thing. And just so that you know, like the chain of and how HIV came to be. There was a lawsuit in Toms River where a child was a protected category, sexual orientation. They sued the school system and they decided to write HIV. HIV is an educational statute. It is not a civil or criminal law. So stop using words like, my kid was assaulted, he's harassed, and I'm going to the police department. There is absolutely nothing they can do. It is not a law. It is an education statute. It is categorized under your civil rights. That's it. You are protected to have your child have a safe learning environment under your civil rights. Now, in the event that you are a protected category under Title IX, you can actually go after the American Disabilities Act and all of that. You can do that. And that's for extreme cases. But let's just talk about normal, everyday adolescent behavior. HIV is an education statute. It really is designed to give the school system a guideline for how they're supposed to respond to misbehavior at school. That's really what it's designed for. The problem with it is that while they wrote a great definition of it, we as New Jersey spent tons of money creating this document, but we didn't create the policies or the discipline associated with it. See, when children can predict the consequences of their behavior, you've got them, right? You know it. How many of you licensed drivers going a little bit over the speed limit? You see a cop, what do? What?
Slow down.
You slow down. Why? Even if you're really not speeding, you immediately react because you know that if you don't slow down or you start changing your behavior. How many of you put your cell phone down the minute you see it or switch over to Bluetooth all of a sudden? Because you know the consequences of the behavior. Yet we haven't created that environment for our kids. Why not? When children can predict the consequences, then they can be in charge. When children are in charge of that behavior, we can work with that. So I think it's really important that if they do A, B takes place. If they do C, D takes place. Part of the problem that I think is missing from the current HIV is that it's a free-for-all. Some children get the book thrown at them. They picked up a pebble and they tossed it at a child's foot. That kid went home running to mom and says, Johnny threw a rock at me. Mom emails the school and says, not only did he throw a rock, but he makes fun of him every single day. And they just unload on the school when all the kid did was pick up a rock maybe and throw it at his foot. Maybe he was trying to get his attention to say, hey, this fire drill sucks. I don't know. But things get so blown out of proportion. Children need to be able to predict the consequences of their behavior so that they can understand what they're expected to do and what they're expected to behave. And it's your job to make sure that when you do get that phone call, is stop defending that little Johnny picked up a rock. During the fire drill, he was supposed to behave himself. He was supposed to stand there orderly that, God forbid, in the event that there is a real fire in the building, he's not locked in the bathroom and it's burning to the ground. I don't like fire drills any more than I trust me, anybody else, but they're important. All right. Oh, good, I'm doing good. I'm right on time. So that is my spiel on HIV and that. You need to know the chain of command in your school system and what is expected for you to be able to communicate directly with your school. Why do I say that? Every school is different. Every school has a different form of how they want to be communicated. I believe at back to school night, they often share that while you're on Facebook, checking in to see who's got the greatest and newest car, new hair, whatever. Put your phones down. A lot of work goes into back to school night, and everything that you need to probably know to have a successful year is typically shared that night. Get off Facebook. Nothing's more important than that. You need to know how your school wants to be communicated to and who you communicate to. Talking about communication. Listen, I know that you spent all night long, because I was there. I emailed the school the night before when I found the images of Mal. I emailed the school and I was pissed. Not angry, pissed. I had been emailing and talking to the school for 9 months. I was fed up, I was tired, I'd worked, I had a laundry list of. When you email the school or you call the school, give them time to prepare for your phone call, right? And after that phone call, email them what your takeaway was. CC somebody in that email so that there is never, well, Mrs. Jones, I didn't get your email. I didn't get your phone call. I didn't get your message. An average middle school like Mallory's had 900 students. There's Post-it notes all over their desk. Little Johnny left his lunch. This one did that. This one did that. It's just constant. You picking up the phone and pissed because something happened does not give them time to respond, so of course they're going to respond emotionally back to you because you're emotional. Do yourself a favor. The minute that you find something's gone wrong, email the school. Not this book. I know you all want to be writers, but trust me, they are not reading your 3-paragraph scenario of every little thing that happened the day before. They're literally skimming through it and going, oh my God, is she kidding me? Don't. Mr. and Mrs. HIB coordinator, Mr. and Mrs. principal, whoever your chain of command is, there's something I'd like to talk to you. This is what my child came home and said. These are the bullet points. Literally list them as bullet points. CC a spouse, CC another administrator, make sure that everybody's on the same page, email them. Give them time. If you email them at 9 o'clock and by 12 noon, please don't email Mallory's Army going, I emailed the school and they haven't answered me back. Give them time to answer you. If you're concerned that your child is going to die, then take them to a mental health professional or take them to the hospital. Because at that point, it's too late anyway. So don't expect the school to have a sense of urgency as fast as you do. If you're really concerned about what's going on with your child, don't send them to school that day and take them to be evaluated. And then reach out to the school. How many times did they say, put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then put it on your child? Or there's a reason why that. You need to calm down. If you're concerned about your child's health and well-being, then get them evaluated. Then you can reach out to the school. Always CC them so that there's complete transparency. And if you do have a phone call with them, which I, again, encourage you do, have a conversation with them, and then after that, send them an email. Thank you so much for the talk today. This is what my takeaway was. This is my understanding. You are not going to be told the discipline of the other child. Stop asking. It's against the law. What's it called, Seth? What? FERPA. FERPA. I called it HIPAA the other night and I was audience corrected. It's in that same category. You get what I'm talking about. They cannot tell you what little Johnny's discipline was. Stop asking. You are concerned with your child and your child's behavior and what's going on. That's what you're concerned about. Let them be what the disciplinarian is. In the event that it's not handled, then you reach back out to them. I'm still dealing with this, but give them the opportunity to do so. You're not entitled to anything other than a safe learning environment. All right, any questions in this category before we move on? No? Okay. All right, so now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of what Mallory's Army is all about and why I'm actually really here. I'm not here to preach at you. I'm not here to give you a sermon. Hopefully, I'm here to inspire you to leave here tonight to feel really good about the steps moving forward. I'm asked asked all the time, how am I able, it's only been 15 months. Let that sink in for just a few minutes. I'm able to stand on the stage 15 months after my youngest child died by suicide. How am I able to do this? How am I able to share our story, share our journey, and really be effective? So I start with my own story, right? I'm gonna take a few of you back. Some of you are a little younger than me, some maybe a little older. But I was born and raised in Augusta, Georgia. That's where I'm from. Hopefully one day I'll make it back there. And in my community, back in the 80s, just to date myself a little bit, my family was the first family in my community to go through a divorce. I was 9 years old and loved my dad, still have a great relationship with him, but he decided that he wanted to have another family and go off and do so. And so be it. My dad's allowed to do that. He can do his thing. But it was very difficult for my mother. We were 3 small children, and she didn't know how to handle it. She didn't know what to do with herself. So she moved in with her sister in Hope Mills, North Carolina. And for those of you who don't know what Hope Mills, North Carolina is, it's a town about the size of this room. Has a tiny little traffic light, has a middle school, has a high school, and it had an elementary school. Right outside of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So any military in the room? Any military? Thank you for your service. I think it's really important. So my mother went to go live with her sister. The problem with that living with her sister is that we lived in one room. My sister had an autistic son, nonverbal, before he was 10. They taught him how to speak with Cheerios. It was like the little movie, Monsters, Inc., right? She'd go, oh, and they'd throw a Cheerio at him. That got him to be verbal. So I grew up in the autism world before we knew what autism was. And for those of you who don't understand that, everybody in that category was retarded. God bless us, we elevated ourselves and we no longer use that language. But back then, that's what they were, everybody. So, how did I become so resilient? I went to school, first day. The teachers felt really sorry for me, right? And by the way, teachers, some of the most selfless people in the world, on the planet, right? They literally, from wiping noses to dealing with your arrogant teenagers, right? So the teachers had good intentions. Their perspective of what they were doing. And remember this, when it comes to bullying and all of this, your perception is your truth. You can have 100 people that love you, you focus on the 6 that hate you. Your perception is your truth. Just because you didn't mean to hurt somebody doesn't mean that you didn't. I'll give you an example. If I step on your foot, and I didn't mean to, and I walk by and go, sorry, Anthony, I didn't mean to step on your foot. And you go, it's okay. What I don't know is that maybe Anthony's just had bunion surgery. Maybe 10 people before me have stepped on his foot, and maybe he just decides that, you know what, I'm so sick of people stepping on my foot, you know what, I'm just gonna go home, I'm calling the doctor, I'm cutting my leg off. I don't know what his fuse is. Every single one of your children has a fuse. You don't know how long it is, and you don't know how short it is. So, your perception is your truth. I look in the mirror and I see that I need to lose 20 pounds. Someone else might look at me and go, God, I would do anything to be her size. It's my perception, it's my truth. Just because it's not true necessarily, and this is what your children are struggling with. Their affirmations are in an electronic device, not at the mirror. You can put Post-its all over the walls and all over their lockers all you want to. But when they look in the mirror, if they see an ugly duckling, that's what they see. We spent 10 years screwing this up. You ain't gonna fix it in one night. Perception, reality, good intentions. I think we all walk around with good intentions. It doesn't mean they're right. My teachers had really great intentions. So you know what they did? We didn't have email. Believe it or not, for all the children in the room, there was no such thing as email. We didn't have cell phones. They put up posters. 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 Diane Tully, the poorest kid in school, needs your Christmas help. That's That's right. Nothing says bully me like being the poor kid at school. They meant well. They were going to make a big collection. They were going to help my mother. Wait a minute. Those are good intentions. We're all sitting here with our jaw on the ground because we now know, in hindsight, that that was probably the worst thing that they could have done. But they wanted a community to support the new student. You know what else they gave me? Free lunch card. A bright orange card that says, I'm poor and I can't afford lunch. The good news is, in all of this, we had an amazing Christmas that year. I was mortified, but I had a nice Christmas. I did. I got myself a star-bellied Sneetch. Anybody Dr. Seuss fans? That's right, yeah. That's exactly what you want in 6th grade, is a stuffed animal star-bellied Sneetch. But I remember that. I remember it was beautiful and it was kind. And I appreciated it, but I was truly mortified and I was embarrassed. And I hated the fact that I was treated differently, because all you want to do in that scenario, when you've lost everything, is you just want to fit in. Well, nothing has changed with today's children. They really just want to fit in. And that's the reason why you see this obsession with brands and social media. They're trying to fit in. Nothing has changed. The good news, though, is at school, I was the poorest kid. At school, teachers all felt sorry for me, couldn't say my last name. But when I came home, I was just a normal kid. I played out in the street, I rolled my roller skates, we went to the park. You know, we did normal, everyday kid things, so I was able to escape it. Your children can't escape it. I had a conversation with Jane Clemente. Anybody know who Jane Clemente is? Her son is Tyler Clemente. He jumped off the George Washington Bridge after being videotaped. Right. You know what his bullies got? They were not deported, and he got a $10,000 fine. What Jane told me was that her son Tyler had a file in his computer. All the hateful things that was ever said about him, he put in this file, and he labeled it. Why we hate Tyler, right? Like all these nasty things. And you know what he did? He visited that file every day, and he reread the things that are said about him. How many times do you do that? You get a nasty text and you were like, what did that bitch mean? Right? You're looking at it, you're going through it, and you're like, wait a minute, what did she say? Where's it? Read this. Do you think that's as bad? Do you think, what do you think should I respond to this? Should I say anything? You know what? And you start mad texting, right? And then you think about it, and you're like, oh God, and they're like, no, I meant okay, not K, I fat fingered it. And next thing you know, you find yourself in an apologetic conversation because you overreacted, right? Well, that was Tyler. He overreacted to the things that were said about him. But it was his perception that he was hated. His perception was, I'm gay and everybody knows about it. His perception was his truth. My story is very simple and very easy to understand. Good intentions went horribly wrong, but I was able to escape it. I was able to at some point find some form of normalcy in my life, and I was able to have resilient behavior because on the streets of Hope Mills, North Carolina, I was just a normal kid. And that's what your kids are lacking, the ability to build resilient behavior. So that is how I'm able to stand before you 15 months after my daughter died, is because I, over years, was able to develop resilient behavior. See, I believe it is never about what happens to you that defines you. It is what you do that matters. Every kid in this audience says YOLO, right? What does YOLO mean? You only live once. Wow. What a sad thing to think that you only live once. No, you live twice. You live the life that you live here and the legacy that's carried on after you're gone. Teach your children to leave behind a legacy. Teach your children to be humanitarians, philanthropic. That is, they don't live once, they live twice. What's going to be said about them? What happens if you Googled your child's name? You kids like to think that it's gone on Snapchat. It is not. It's on a server. The content and data that they own Snapchat is a billion, that's with a B, billion-dollar entity. Raise of hands, do you know what they manufacture? What do they manufacture back in the room?
They sell information.
I'm sorry?
They sell information.
Wow, they sell information. So do they manufacture anything? No. Do they have a product that benefits you? Nope. Then why are your children using it? Why? Because it's got cute filters? Give them a coloring book and a crayon. There's your filters. Seriously. They are a billion-dollar company, and they are making money off the backs of your children, and you help them. Why would you do that? Why? Your children are never going to learn to be resilient if they're constantly staring at the real white van. And by the way, again, this isn't just about suicide. This is about the real white van. This is sexting. Notice I said send nudes. This is about sexting. This is about revenge porn. Does anybody in this room know what revenge porn is? Yeah? Your daughter, your 13-year-old daughter sends nudes. And by the way, I've seen them. We're talking full-on frontal nudes. They send it to their boyfriend thinking that they're going to be cool. Because here's the problem with sending nudes. If you don't send the nudes, you're a prude. If you do send the nudes, guess what you've just participated in? Child pornography. True. Officer, am I right? Can I get an amen over here? My choir? Amen. Your child's just now participated in child pornography by sending full-on frontal. You tell me. So, lost my little train of thought for a second. Okay. So, your children, they're making billions off the backs of your children. Revenge porn. Revenge porn, after your daughter sends the nudes to the boy goes, thanks for the tit shot. Love it. You know what he does? What? He sends it to every single one of his friends because he is so happy that he got a girl to send him nudes. Do yourself a favor. Give your boy a Playboy. I'm serious. You think I'm kidding? I'm telling you, to be the parent and stop being a friend. Your child just sent pornography across the airways, and this guy in the second row over here has got to make the phone call that you now are in a child pornography investigation. Because in the seconds that it took for that picture to go viral, so did it on the dark web. That's right. And there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. Again, forgive me for the profanity. I'm doing my best. Seriously, you've got to think about that. So when I tell you these things, it's not to frighten you, it's not to scare you. It is to really, hopefully, open your eyes to the things that you needed to hear. Child pornography, the sexting, the abduction, all of that. The real white van is the one in your kid's hands. That is the real white van. This guy gets a phone call the minute that a painter is lost in your neighborhood. There's a white van in the neighborhood. Pretty sure it doesn't have anything. What's its license plate? PS2. And he's sitting there going, okay, it's so-and-so's painting. I've gotten 3 phone calls already. Yet he never gets the phone call that your child is on the dark web, on the internet, taking pictures. That's the real white van. True story. My hairdresser, which doesn't get paid that much because I don't have much of it, so it's more of a pity haircut that I get. But that being said, after Mallory died, this is after. Talk about not learning from people around you. She's cutting my hair recently and she tells me, oh my God, you cannot believe what Mia did. Let me tell you. And I'm listening to her. Mia's her 16-year-old daughter. Good student, pretty good. She's telling me about how she took Mia to the Rockaway Mall to meet her new boyfriend. And she's telling me how they're at the mall and they're waiting and waiting and waiting and they're not wondering why. And Mia's had this whole story about this boy, and he's from Hills, she's at Knowles, and she's elaborate story. Hairdresser doesn't pick up on it. She's waiting and waiting, waiting, and the daughter kept saying, Mia kept saying, you can leave, you can leave, you can leave. You don't have to wait for us, you don't have to wait. So, she stands there and she goes, no, I want to meet the mom, I want to meet Mia, you're 16, I want to meet who you're hanging out with. Okay. All of a sudden, the mom comes rushing in, and the girl, Mia, sees the boy, and they go rushing, and they hug each other, and so the hairdresser says, oh my gosh, you know, so nice to meet you, and she goes, true story. The mom goes, I'm so sorry that we're late. You know, it took us a while to get here. I had a tough time finding. And she's looking at her and she goes, took you a while to get here. What are you talking about? The boy was from upstate New York, and that mom drove an hour and 45 minutes for her son to meet a girl that he had never met before. We're just lucky that that boy was not 33 and a registered sex offender. What if my hairdresser had left Mia, left her there, wished her well, and he was a registered sex offender? I'm guessing you hear stories like this all the time, right? Yeah, happens every day. Our children, write this down while you're taking notes. Write this down, after school. Just the words after school. Go to the app store in your free time and type in the word after school. There are thousands, not hundreds, thousands of apps. And you know what those apps say? Talk to strangers for free. That's right, your kids know about them. There's an app, looks like a calculator. Put it on your phone. You think your kid's doing math, they're just hiding pictures and images from you. There's an app literally in the after school, it says after school, and it literally has a picture of about a 14-year-old girl with a funny face, and it literally, their advertisement is talk to strangers for free. True. There are people out there in this world that are soliciting your children. So what happened? I know that's what you guys all want to know. What happened to Mallory? So I'm going to transition into Mallory's story. It's very difficult for me, so forgive me, but I think it's extremely important that you hear as many of the details that I can share with you. It's still under investigation, so we don't share everything, and there are reasons why we don't share everything, so I'm not going to tell you the who, what, when, why, and all of that. So this is not an episode of the National Enquirer. This is a story to share with you. Everybody thinks that it was like this big, dramatic, like, what happened? Bullying doesn't happen like that. There are small little black marks that happen on the soul of a child when their eyes are rolled, when they're hated at school, the whispering happens. So there's not this big, giant what happens. Mallory's bullying started in 5th grade. And for those of you that don't know, there is a progression that leads up to children that are either picked on, bullied, or what have you. Number one characteristic for a child that is bullied is sensitivity. Not compassion, sensitivity. Mallory was a very sensitive child. We moved to Rockaway Township when she was in 4th grade. So 4th grade, she was kind of the cool girl, right? She was the new kid on the block. Mallory was a gymnast and didn't get a chance to go to birthday parties and really socialize, because any of you who've had a gymnast and had one on national team, you know that there is no other life outside of gymnastics. It is, if the gym is open, your butt is there. The gym closes, you leave. That's it. No such thing as birthday parties, no such thing as, and it was, by the way, that's not me. Do I look like I could go and do a back handspring? No, I could barely do a cartwheel. This was Mallory's journey, not mine. My husband and I, neither one of us are athletes. But this was Mallory. She wanted to be a gymnast. I think she was born to be a gymnast. She had an incredible toe point. She was a good kid. So she wanted to be a gymnast. 4th grade was okay. 5th grade, she started to tell me these little stories about 2 girls in her class that were just a little not so nice. Okay. I would listen to it, and like all of you, I'm like, Mallory, they're just jealous of you. Mallory, they just, you know what, they're jealous of you. They like you, they don't like you. Whatever excuse that we as moms and dads like to make about why our kids are hated and picked on, stop. The why doesn't matter, it's the what. Right? Elon Musk, everybody know who he is? He said the problem with our education system is we're too busy teaching the what and not the why. If you teach the why a child has brain cancer, the children can understand the what, and they're less likely to tease a child. If we teach a child why they need algebra, the what is so much easier. If you teach them why they need geometry, you get the point. So, teach why. Why is this? What's going on? Right? So, Mallory's having these, little tiffs, and I'm making excuses for the girls like every other mom and dad. I'm telling Seth, I'm like, God, these girls, and Mallory's coming home, and I'm just missing it. I'm like, whatever, Mal, just go find other friends, right? Why don't you go be friends with Lily? Lily's a nice kid. Just ignore them. They've got a, they have a crush on you. Of course, I didn't know. So, one day Mal comes home, and she's really excited. I mean, I'm talking beaming. I'd never seen her so joyful. That's the best way to describe it. She was actually happy. She couldn't wait till I got home. She couldn't wait for me to come through the door. And I was like, Mal, give me a couple of minutes, right? No, Mom, it's really cool. We created this thing on the playground. It's called a squad. And I'm in it. And girl A, girl B, they're in it. And of course, I'm thinking, okay. Girl A, girl B. In page 3 of your HIV document, page 3 or 4, there is all the different categories of bullying. You're going to add one to that page. It's called relational bullying. Ever heard of it? My administrators have. The most dangerous form of bullying, I believe. I'll wrap it up for you this easy. Relational bullying. It is absolutely what Mallory went through. How many of you have 10 girls? They used to be all friends. One day they're friends, the next minute they're not friends. One minute that they hate each other, the next minute they love each other. The next minute they are sleeping over, and the next minute they're ready to kill each other. It's relational bullying, especially when there's a ringleader. It's very dangerous. Because the problem with it is the child that is the victim, they don't know when they're the victim and when they're not. They never know when they're in the club and when they're not. Mallory didn't know that she was part of the squad, and she was not. She believed that she had finally been accepted. So Mallory's all excited. The next day, they are going to wear short overalls, the overalls with the bib, and which she had, thank God, and a pink t-shirt. I was like, oh God, here we go with Mean Girls. We wear pink on Wednesday. Yeah, which by the way, thanks to Jen, she told me that today is actually National Mean Girls Day. There actually is a National Mean Girls Day, because we need that. Please. National Milkshake Day, I get. National Mean Girl Day, I'm a little confused. But that being said, 100%. Mallory's all excited. Mom, we gotta go to the mall. We've gotta I gotta have a pink t-shirt. We're all wearing pink t-shirts and overalls. Okay, great. Let's go, Mal. I take her to the mall. The last place I wanted to be, on a Thursday night is at the Rockaway Mall. But I knew how important it was, and I knew that Mallory really struggled with trying to fit in. I didn't know what relational bullying was. I'd never heard of it. No one ever explained it to me. All I knew is that Mallory was finally starting to show signs of being accepted, and in her mind, she was happy, so I'm going to participate. We buy the pink t-shirt and come home. She didn't sleep that night before. She was so excited. It was like Christmas Eve, Santa's coming the next day. I had no idea. This was the first evidence that I knew that my daughter was in some kind of trouble. She gets up, she goes to school the next day. You can imagine what her day at school was like. How many of you think that they wore the pink t-shirts? None of them. She was humiliated. Now for the school administrators, you're right. During your investigation, you're 100% right. There is absolutely no way for you to quantify this as bullying. I'm telling you, it's bullying. She was singled out, she was humiliated, and it's bullying. 100%. By definition of the HIV document, she was humiliated and she was bullied. She was bullied into believing that she was accepted and part of a squad. And when she got to school the next day and not one child was wearing a pink t-shirt, she was embarrassed all day long. She came home, she ripped those jean overalls off, ripped the pink t-shirt, threw it in the trash. I took it out and said, Mallory, no, you don't understand. She was crying hysterically. And she's right, I didn't understand. I didn't. I didn't see what the big deal was. Those clothes are still sitting in the corner of her room. I don't have the strength or the energy to put them away. What do I do with them? Do I donate them to Goodwill? Do I give them to her friend? This body armor that represents relational bullying. They just sit in this dark corner of the room, unable for me to look at. That was 5th grade. We survived it. We didn't thrive in it. And by the way, to the educators and parents in the room, if your children are not thriving in school, we're doing something wrong. We should not be surviving school. We should be thriving. We pour way too much money into our school systems for our children to be surviving it. Sadly, my child didn't survive our school system. She didn't. We made it through 5th grade, barely. At that point, I told Mallory, those girls are bad news. Stay away from them. Just let it go, Mal. Let it go. So we did. Kind of let it go. 6th grade's going to be a new day. Why in the hell I thought that there was going to be this great moment in 6th grade? All I knew is that school kids from other districts, other elementary schools were coming together, and I thought at least she would have access to other students and that maybe she would make friends. She decided that she no longer wanted to do gymnastics. I didn't know this. Again, another sign. When a child quits something that they hate, that's a huge red flag. Mallory quitted gymnastics because she was good at it, and she was hated for being good at it. I didn't know that. I thought she was quitting because she wanted to go to birthday parties and she wanted to experience what life was about. She wasn't. She was hated for being good at something. What those girls didn't know is that Mallory had spent from kindergarten through 5th grade at that gym every single day. Yes, she was good at a double back handspring on a 4-inch beam. She earned it. Your children, if your child runs the mile in 5 minutes and somebody comes along and runs that mile in 4 minutes and 50 seconds, your job as a parent is not to go and get them freaking running lessons. It's not. Someone's always going to be richer than you, someone's always going to be poorer than you. Someone's always going to be faster than you, someone's always going to be slower than you. Your job is to teach your child how to respond when someone's better than them. Don't teach your girls to hate the girl because she can do 10 back springs off the football field. You should go over to that and say, hey Mallory, that's really cool. Could you show Olivia how to do that? She doesn't know how to do a cartwheel. Help her. Because I can assure you, nothing makes a child feel better than to be able to share their skills. Stop solving your children's problems. Stop. It's not how this works. 6th grade. All right. We all know what that's all about. I could probably hang the microphone up. We could all go now. 6th grade. So it starts out, what I call is the new sneaker syndrome. Everybody is awesome in September, right? Everybody's so good in September. You got a new backpack, you got a new pair of Chucks, and you are ready to conquer the world. Every single kid in September is going to be high on a roll. They are going to be good. They talk themselves through this incredible montage of, it is going to be an awesome year. Then October rolls around. The Chucks are no longer brand new. The backpack's got a rip in it, and they have just realized that the same feelings that they had about school last year is the same feelings they had this year. And the behavior sets in. I know that because my email is slap full of your complaints now that it's October. Diane, what do? I didn't hear from any of you in September. Back to school nights, everybody's positive, everybody feels good, and now all of a sudden it's October and the new sneaker syndrome has set in. Same thing with Mallory. She was good in September. October rolls around. She's in computer class. Apparently, she looked at one of the girls' boyfriend. I'm going to say it again. One of the girls' boyfriend, 6th grade. She looked at him in class. Well, apparently he went back and told his girlfriend. Why guys are still telling their girlfriends anything is beyond me. You guys have learned nothing since the beginning of time. It's like Adam, right? Hey Eve, come look at this apple. Like seriously, keep it to yourself. No one cares. Seriously. So he his girlfriend. Mallory Grossman looked at me. That's right. I'm good. I must be the best looking one in the bunch. What does he do? The girls come over. He calls Mallory, he has to defend himself, and he calls Mallory rich and white. Now, when I reported that abusive behavior, that Mallory was rich and white, I got an email back saying I should consider that to be a compliment. Right. What they didn't know is that the reason why we moved to Rockaway is because my husband lost his job after 27 years. So the last thing that we were rich. Mallory had lived the loss of his and her BMWs in the driveway, our house of 12 years. She had watched her parents basically fall apart right in front of her. She watched all this happen. The only thing she was proud of is the fact that we stayed together as a unit. See, I believed in 18 years of marriage, you bond together when crisis happen. That's how we're able to be such a unit that we are, right? So when they called Mallory rich and white, yeah, she's a white girl, but she's not rich. See, we live in a rental. We don't own our home any longer. We cashed out the equity in our home so that we could fund our business. That's true dedication. So, no, Mr. and Mrs. Principal, that's not good enough. Well, Miss Grossman, it's not really the definition of a hip. Okay, whatever, just take care of it. Okay, we took care of it. Next thing you know, choir class. Constant tapping. Whispering. You're a loser. You're a bitch. Over and over. Mallory gets up. I tell Mallory, remove yourself from the situation, right? Isn't that what we tell our kids? Just remove yourself from the situation. That's what choir teachers say. Mallory, go back and sit back down. You're not allowed to change seats. Mallory goes back and sits down. Email the school. Oh, Miss Grossman, the teacher didn't see the tapping of the chair. You're right, you didn't see it. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Right? Girl cries, wait. Right? She goes home, she's been violently sexually assaulted. What does she do? She's trying to come to grips with what happened. She goes home and what does she do? Takes a shower. Just because she washed away the evidence doesn't mean it didn't happen. And that doesn't mean it's harder to prove, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Just because you don't see it, and just because the kids are really good at hiding stuff, doesn't mean it didn't happen. Ms. Grossman, we didn't see it. Teacher, we spoke to her. She doesn't know anything about it, didn't see it. Okay, fine. Now, if you sit at your desk every other day, and a coworker kicks it and calls you a bitch every day, what do? You get to go down to HR. You fill out a report and immediately it's taken away. Our children don't have that benefit. Why? You have the mental capacity to stand up in your chair and tell her to knock it off. Your kids don't have that. Why? Why are our children's experiences less valuable than ours? We have the ability to go down to HR and complain about it. They don't. They get words like, well, we'll investigate it. We'll look into it. They looked into it. Nothing was done. These tiny little black marks on the soul of who she was. See, it didn't matter that Mallory had a mother and father that adored her. It didn't matter that she had great friends. You saw the video. Mallory had friends. Mallory had a family that loves her. Mallory lives in a beautiful home with a swimming pool. I must have the best rental in New Jersey. It's got an in-ground pool. I'm like, God, I'm living like, you know, Jay-Z and Beyonce right now. Like, I can't believe it. But Mallory had a good life. Her perception was she was the most hated kid in school. And apparently that perception carried itself online. I'm doing on time. Okay. So, where it happens. Where do we all go wrong? These series of black marks on the canvas of who she was. She didn't have enough colorful days at school. All right? She didn't. Her canvas had more black marks on it than it had colorful days. June 13th. I get a phone call. I'll never, ever, ever for the rest of my life forget this phone call. Hey Mal, what's up? Hey, when are you coming home? I got this phone call regularly. Had a bad day at school. I'm on my way now. What's up? Nothing. When are you coming home? Regular time. I'll be home. Okay. Click. I walk through the door. Seth throws some Bubba burgers on the grill. I told you we weren't rich and white. He throws a couple of Bubba burgers on the grill. Mallory comes downstairs. She makes herself a hamburger. And she did something that it did not make any sense to me, but now I get it. She's never, ever, ever asked to eat dinner in her bedroom. Never. See, the same characteristics, you guys are all asking me, well, Diane, what are the signs? Here's the problem with adolescence. The same signs that are suicide prevention awareness are the same tween behaviors. There are no signs at this age. She has to eat dinner in her bedroom. I thought it was peculiar, but I was like, all right, she's had a bad day at school. You know what? I've had a long day. I'm going to wash my face. Whatever. I'll let her go. She went upstairs. She ate dinner. And Seth and I are chatting, and we're like, something doesn't smell right. And I'm thinking, what the hell did the girls do now? Because again, I'm still in that mode, right? Everything's going to be okay. It never entered my mind. For those of you who think that Mallory was mentally unstable, that she had, nope. Mallory was experiencing impulsive style behavior as a result of her environment. She comes downstairs, she puts the plate on the table, and I go, hey Mal, what's up? What's going on? Nothing, I just had a really bad day. I was like, what? She goes, I don't have any friends at school. I was like, Mal, what do you mean you don't have any friends at school? And I could see the desperation in her voice. And I just said, what do you mean you don't have any friends? And I started to name these people that I thought were her friends, and she just stared at me with this dark look of, you don't know what the hell my life is like at school. She disappears, she goes upstairs. Apparently she told her dad what was going on. He comes downstairs and says, you need to talk to Mal. Apparently there are images about her online. You have no friends, poor Mal, you should kill yourself. I thought, wow. We used to tell our kids to, you know, as kids we used to have this leave it to beaver mentality, go jump in the lake. Your kids have raised the bar on hate. Imagine texting someone, go kill yourself. As bitchy as I am, I could never. Imagine saying to someone, you should die. But your kids do. Mal comes downstairs, she sits on the couch, and she weeps like nothing I've ever seen before. I'm talking alligator tears. This sheer release of just pain. Her sister Carly comes downstairs and holds her. They sit on the couch holding each other. It's the last time her sister put her arms on her sister, put her hands around her. The last time. Mal cries and weeps. She shows me the phone. I'm pissed. I'm like really pissed. I'm like rage pissed because I've had enough. I've given the school multiple times to fix this. They know this girl's a problem. I'm not the first one to complain about her. I've talked to other moms in the community because I've reached out to my moms going, I'm having a problem with this girl. What do I do? What do I do? Nobody had an answer for me because we all do the same thing. So I emailed the images to the school. I'm ready to pitchfork them the next day. What I learned that day is that Mallory went to 3 lunch tables. Ironic that tonight is Mean Girls Night. You can't sit with us. There's even t-shirts around that say, you can't sit with us, right? We wear pink on Wednesdays. Ironic that Mallory's pink t-shirt is this. It's funny how we can foreshadow forward. Mallory went to 3 lunch tables on June 13th. First table said, you can't sit here. Popular girls. Popular girls say you can't sit here, so the medium popular girls, you damn sure ain't sitting at their table because they know they're just happy it's not them. Third table, Well, if you're not sitting at that table, you're not sitting in that one, we're in enough trouble over here. You're definitely not sitting at our table. Mallory takes her lunchbox. Remember how I said that the lunch aides are the most important people that you should be funding in your program? Mallory goes to the lunch aide. Lunch aide, what's the matter, sweetie? You didn't find a lunch table to sit at? Mallory said no. She goes, oh, okay, here's your hall pass. You can go to the library. And she wrote it. She sent Mallory to the library, which is where I'm pretty sure that my daughter contemplated ending her life, because she was, at that moment, the most hated person at school. She sits in the library. Librarian recognized, what's this pretty little girl coming to the library every day sitting quietly? She's not an avid reader. Why is she sitting in the library? No triggers, no signs. Lunch aide lets Mallory go and sit in the library by herself. I reach out to the mom of the girl that told my daughter to kill herself online in Snapchat. The mom says, can't your daughter take a joke? Yep, which is why I started with, when you get that phone call, shut up and listen. There's a reason for a method to my madness. So, Mallory, no. Mallory can't take a joke because it's not funny. See, the definition of a joke is both parties need to be laughing. For those of you, there is nothing funny about what was said to my daughter. Your daughter called my daughter fat. Mallory had thighs bigger than mine. You have to in gymnastics. My daughter would never call your daughter fat because she's the fat one. True story. I was like, wow, apple meat tree. Now we know where your daughter gets it from. Are you threatening me? No, I'm not threatening you at all. Down south, we don't threaten anybody. We just do it. So, you know, yeah, you're born learning how to beat someone's ass. I'm just telling you. Which is another issue that your kids are not faced with. How many of your high school kids have come home and said there was a fight at school? Doesn't happen anymore. You know why? Because they go home and rage online. You know why? Because if they get caught fighting at school, they're going to get the book thrown at them. So that pent-up anger, that pent-up rage, they don't school fight anymore. And listen, by the way, I'm not advocating for fighting, although nothing would make somebody feel better than a nice, good ass whooping. But by the way, I'm not advocating that. I'm wanting you to recognize that your kids have fear, anxiety, and anger that's pent up. That pent-up anger translates to rage. That rage turns into online misbehavior, mass shootings, drug addiction, pick your poison. Our children are in crisis. There's an epidemic going on. Leading cause of death. 4,400 children a year die by suicide. And by the way, I say die by suicide, I don't say committed suicide. You commit adultery and you commit crimes. What my daughter did was not a crime. Her first attempt was her last. Most children at this age, it's an attempt, it's an impulsive. Not Mallory. 12 years I had with her. 12 years. And it took her 4 minutes to die. June 14th, I'm pissed. Still pissed. I called my sister that morning at like 6 in the morning, and I am pissed, right? I can't tell you enough how mad I am. Mama Bear's coming out. This school's gonna pay for what they're doing. I'm going to. I tell Seth, you're going with me. He's like, oh, great. So I call my sister. She knows what I've been dealing with. She's right there with me. We go into the school. They yes me to death. They victimize Mallory all over again. Well, tell me, sweetie, what did they say about you? Oh my God, you couldn't find a place to sit? Oh, poor thing. You can sit in the guidance counselor. Yeah, you can come sit and have lunch with a guidance counselor. Because every 6th grader wants to have lunch with a 40-year-old woman. Right? Right? They victimized her all over again. 3 hours, we argued. My daughter came home. She ate her favorite meal. SpaghettiOs. She went upstairs and she laid in her bed. She just laid there. She was so sad. She was so tired. You know that feeling when you just can't fight anymore? I see it now in hindsight. She just couldn't think. She couldn't process it anymore. I can still feel her body next to mine as I spooned up next to her for the last time, mind you, combing her soft, pretty blonde hair, telling her that it's going to be okay. It was not okay. Like a damn idiot, I go on with my life. I get dressed because I've got to, be a mom to this one and be a mom to that one. It's time to go into the city. I'm taking Carly to New York City. 6 o'clock, I get the phone call. You need to come home. Mallory hurt herself. Well, shit, Seth, take her to the doctor. I'm thinking she was doing cartwheels off the bed and twisted her ankle. No, Diane, she hurt herself. You need to come home. Seth, take her to the doctor. I can't do everything for you. Diane, the paramedics are working on her right now. I need you to come home. The paramedics are working on her. I found out that my daughter had died at 8 o'clock that night. Leading cause of death in this country is suicide for our youth ages 10 to 24. Think about it. 10. Before puberty, before boobs, before their first kiss, leading cause of death. 10 to 24. Children aren't in crisis. What did Mallory leave me? Besides a broken heart, which I will never heal from, Mallory left me something so important. She left me the ability to share her story in hopes to save your children. See, Mallory lived something called a bracelet kind of life. What does that mean? When Mallory was about 6 or 7 years old, she saw her dad and I working at the kitchen table, plugging away at numbers, Seth teaching me what gross margins are, and I'm sitting there going, I don't really care, just how much do I have to spend? Could you just tell me that? Could we just fast forward? He would say, you have $30. I was like, score, I got 50. Woo! I got $50 to spend. Mallory sees us plugging away at the computer. She walks through with her little candid self, and she walks in and she goes, this is such a true story. She goes, I don't want a life like that. And I was like, oh, you don't? I don't want no life like that. I was like, oh really, Mallory, what kind of life do you want? She goes, I want a bracelet kind of life. Bracelet kind of life. I was like, enlighten me. What does that mean? I'm thinking, I've just been told she's gonna live in my basement for the rest of her life. She says, a bracelet kind of life. And I'm like, no, what does that mean? I'm thinking, she's gonna travel the Grateful Dead around. And I said, well, Mallory, are you gonna follow the Grateful Dead and tour and sell bracelets and sell tacos? True story, she looks at me and she goes, who's the Grateful Dead? I was like, I have truly failed as a parent. I was like, Jerry Garcia. She goes, I know Cherry Garcia. Is that what you're talking about? I was like, close enough, we're on the same page. She said, no, Mom, a bracelet kind of life. She goes, when you wear something on your arm, like a homemade bracelet, and it reminds you to be a really great person. See, Mallory used to sell bracelets at our campsite. Seth and I took our kids camping because we really wanted to connect with our children, and we believed in, just kind of unplugging a little bit. And so I'm really proud to say that we took our kids camping. I know there are plenty of people in here, your definition of camping is the Hampton Inn. I get it. Just do something. Whatever that is, do something. We took Mallory, she'd sell bracelets at the camp store and raise money for an organization called Camp Good Days. Camp Good Days, for those of you who don't know, is a camp that's 100% free for children with cancer. Mallory did not understand why kids with cancer would have to pay for camp. Why isn't it free? And I said, well, Mallory, The reason why it's not free is it's really expensive to pay for kids' medical care while they're at camp. She's like, oh, well, I want to help. I want to be a part of that. She called it a bracelet kind of life. She believed selling these little crafts would make a difference in someone's life. About a month or so after Mallory died, her best friend Bianca, devastated by what has happened and unable to wrap her head around it, created these little blue silicone bracelets. We ordered 300 with the understanding that we would be saddled with 150 that we could not give away. In an hour, we sold 300 bracelets. We ordered 1,000 more. By the time I pressed send on 1,000, I had to call back and say I need 1,000 more, because those 1,000 were already sold, waiting. I was like, wow, this is crazy, right? All these people want. So I was like, I'm going to do something really brave. I'm going to order like 5,000. Remember I told you I was chief spending officer? Well, I ordered 5,000 knowing that I'm going to be stuck with. Sold them in a week. So I'm talking with Jen, who knew Mallory, and she's doing a little research because we're like, wow, these little blue bands are working. What's going on? There's got to be something more to it. I know that Mallory's a really sad story, but there's got to be more to this blue band than just people having a warm heart. Jen does her research. Her research shows that here in New Jersey, not my can of crazy, someone else's, Rutgers, Yale, and Princeton participated in a middle school survey. 56 middle schools in New Jersey. This case study, you know what it found out? That a bright colored band on the arm of influential children will decrease bullying by more than 30%. Just like you used to tie a string around your finger to remember to pick up milk and bread, this little blue band reminds children not to be jerks at school. It's a constant reminder. It's a teachable tool. It's an opportunity for, and can you go out and buy your own colorful bands and put them on the arms of children? No. Children need something to believe in. Children need something that they associate with. You don't know how many children have said, Miss Grossman, my heart hurts like Mallory's. Mrs. Grossman, my day at school is like Mallory's. They're not the weird kids at school that you think. They're not the damaged kids from broken homes. They're just kids. Some might be on the spectrum, some might not. They're just kids. But they suffer from a syndrome that we call like Mallory. And I remember when I told you they are the CEOs of their hallways? Well, they are. And this is why. So these little blue bands are more than just, not only does Mallory have her bracelet kind of life, and year to date we have given away or sold more than 60,000 of these blue bands. They're working. They are in school systems and teachers are. Where's your Mallory's Army band? Children are recognizing. See, the influential children, also known as popular kids, are reminded that they can be a part of something that's bigger than they are. So, my daughter lives a bracelet kind of life. Something as small as a blue band on the arm to remind us to walk and talk a little softer. Mallory's Army is a 501c3, 509 public charity. The talk that you heard tonight, notice I used very few notes. It's from here. My grandfather used to say to me, Diane, you can smell a fake a mile away. The story I share with you is my story, it's our journey, and it is my hope that I inspire each and every one of you to go home and be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. I want you to live a bracelet kind of life, and whatever that is, whether you support Mallory's Army, or whether you support Camp Good Days, or the Humane Society, whatever it is, but teach your children to be humanitarians. We need people to actually care and get involved. Teach your students, adopt Mallory's Army as the foundation of your school. Teach them. Stop raising money for the American Heart Association with your walkathons. It's just a day out of the class for them. The kids don't care. Give them something to care about. Give give them something that actually matters. Because every child knows what it's like to be like Mallory. Adopt a foundation as your foundation of choice. What do we do with the money, you ask? Well, we're having a documentary made. I thought to myself when this was all going there, it's physically impossible for me to make it to every single school in this country, but what can I do? In one of my 3 a.m. fits, Ash will tell you, I sent an email at 3 in the morning and I said, we're doing a documentary. I don't care how much it costs, we'll raise the money. We're doing a documentary. Mallory's more than a 2.5-minute news story. Mallory is an epidemic. Mallory matters. And so I decided to have a documentary. We'll have 2 cuts. One will be about an 1.5-hour feature film that shows the rest of the story. How many of you know who Paul Harvey is? Yeah, a few of you do. The rest of the story. Well, Mallory will be the rest of the story. An hour-long feature, about an hour long. The other 45-minute cut will be a documentary that can be played over and over and over in your school systems to make a difference. The children need to see that your words matter. Sticks and stones, stop. You want to know why our logo is a stone? Because sticks and stones, words do hurt, and they matter. Stop teaching your children to think that it doesn't matter. This is the portion of the night where I open it up for questions. Now that I've got you all nice and happy, I need questions. Yes, ma'am.
What do you suggest for kids who are quiet and they insist nothing wrong?
Great question. Find them someone to talk to. They won't talk to you. Make sure that there is an adult in your life that your child can confide in, because it won't be you. For children that are quiet, that are going to hide behind, give them an adult, whether that is a counselor, mental health community. Give your child someone to talk to. Maybe it's an aunt, maybe it's an uncle, whatever it is, but give your child someone to talk to, because it's not going to be you. Anywhere else? Question? Yes?
We talk a lot about Snapchat.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on
Instagram. So, Instagram I actually think I'm okay with, and here's why. Number one, I think that Instagram is recognizing, they're owned by Facebook, so Instagram is recognizing that our children are in crisis. The content is not advertised that it goes away. That doesn't mean that your kid can't set up a Finsta. How many of you know what a Finsta is? Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, sorry kids, I just spoiler alert. A Finsta is a fake Instagram account. So kids will say literally online, welcome to my Finsta. It says my parents not watching this, so I can post whatever I want. Number one, deal breaker. If your kid has a Finsta, they just lost their privileges. If your kid got caught drinking and driving, you take the keys away, right? If your kid has a Finsta, you take the phone away. And by the way, I'm not saying take the phone away for 12 hours, and then as soon as you figure out, I'm saying you write an electronic contract with your kids and you say, this right here is a deal breaker, and you own it. You stick by it and you do exactly what you said you were going to do. I think out of all of the platforms, I think Instagram is probably one of the ones that I would not necessarily endorse, but your children, that is their virtual world, that is their coffee shop. So I think that Instagram. You need to pay attention to an app called Sahara. Sahara is not one that your kids need to be using. It is an app developed to teach kids how to shame other kids anonymously. Who's the biggest hoe at CMS? Who's the biggest bitch at CMS? Yeah, and what happens is the app is allowed to be shared virtually, so the name of the child that's being shamed stays on it, but the person who wrote it doesn't. It teaches your kids how to do it. Snapchat I'm not a big fan of. Sahara is really, I think Instagram is really the basis, and you have to decide when social media is age appropriate for your family. There's a whole thing that says wait, there's a whole movement that says wait until 8th. You'll see that. Here's my feeling. If you hold out until 8th grade and you're like, oh, you're just waiting for the inevitable. And by the way, kids bully in 8th grade also. So I'm not necessarily a big fan of the wait until 8. I think you have to decide what's the right parenting style for you, and you have to have an electronic contract with your kids and stick by it. Don't do what parents do. If you don't behave, we are not going into Disney. Yes, you are. Stop. You just flew 800 miles and paid $1,000 for tickets. Of course you're walking in, and your kids know it. Better yet, say, we're going to sit here in this hot, blistering sun until you stop whining. And that might be 3 hours, but I'm okay with it because I've got an electric smoothie. I don't care what it is. Whatever you say the punishment's going to be, you better be able to, because kids need to predict the consequences of their behavior. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Right. When do you anticipate the documentary being finished?
I think we're hopefully going to wrap editing up sometime in December. Of course, we're going to go to the film festivals and hope that it's going to get picked up by someone. So we hope, and if there's anybody in here that works for a distribution, it's just a shameless plug. We hope sometime in the spring we'll have it for release. We want to get it right, not fast. Yes?
On Instagram or whatever social media that our kids are on, I know I've had the observation looking at my daughter's phone that sometimes groups of kids will post a photo of a few of them and we tag a lot of people to say, look how much fun we had, I think with good intention, which of course...
That's bullying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What other advice do you have for the kids in the room to think about when they're posting?
I think bullying is if you like it, heart it, share it, save it, do whatever, that you're participating in bullying. And that's my feeling on that. See, there's something that happens when kids are in 3rd grade. They no longer say, my mommy says, my teacher says, they now say, my friends say. It is okay that you don't want to have a birthday party with 20 kids. You don't want to pay $500, $600 for all the kids to go to Jump Jump. I get it. You decided that this year's birthday party is going to be about 10 girls that can come over to the house, 10 guys. They're going to come over, play a little foosball, a little pinball, a little video games. You're going to order some pizza, and you just saved yourself a bunch of money, right? That's okay. See, you're never going to hear me say that you need to hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and be best friends with everybody. You have a right not to do that. But here's where kids go wrong. They invite 10 of their closest friends, and then they tag the ones that were not invited to the party. Or they FaceTime them and say, so sorry that you couldn't make it, but my mom said I could only have 10. You don't get to do that. Having a party with only 10 friends, you're allowed to do that. Having a party with 10 friends and then bragging about it to the other 20 that were excluded, that is cyberbullying. It is. Stop tagging them. Trust me, they see what you're doing. You don't need to tag everybody in it. Tagging someone is like scratching them. Remember I said that the perception is, you just don't know how short their fuse is. So teach your kids not to tag people in videos, especially, or posts, especially when they didn't ask to be tagged in it. I get that quite often. Hey Diane, here's another kid that killed himself. Thank you for tagging me in it. Right? I'm glad and I'm grateful for the information, but make sure that you have permission to do so. Right? There is a social etiquette when it comes to cyberspace. Know it. Absolutely know it and teach your children. Tagging someone, liking something, sharing it, you're participating. Because what you're doing is your children are endorsing the behavior. And then they go, oh, I didn't do that. I didn't call her a slut online, but you shared it. You're just as guilty. Yes, ma'am. Listen, phones are no longer phones. There are mini computers. My daughter Carly uses her phone constantly. You know, Google Classroom has really set the stage, right? Talk about making billions off the backs of our kids. They offer this great program called Google Classroom. We're kind of contradicting ourselves. So as far as schools and classrooms, that comes to the culture of and how they're going to, I think as long as we're using them as mini computers, then it has to be, because unfortunately we live in an electronic world. Carly uses her calculator, she uses Google Classroom, she writes her homework in it. I mean, this literally is their Filofax. And for those of you who don't know what Filofax is, to the kids in the room, it's a piece of thing that you write paper down, right? So this is their Filofax. So again, it's not about the device. It's not the device that kills people. It's not the device that bullies people. It's the behavior. It's It's behavior management. So you have to have digital responsibility in place when it comes to that. So, I mean, and by the way, a phone. Okay, so you can't have your phone at school. What about your iPad? What about your computer? This is a device world, not just a phone world. The phone seems to be getting blamed because it's in the handheld device, but it's really not the problem, it's the behavior that's the problem. Anybody else? Yes, in the back, last row. Well, it took us 10 years to screw it up. It's going to take us 10 years to get it right. And so the reality is if you think you have a child that does have a perception issue or they are struggling with that, get them counseling. And by the way, I'm not saying every week they have to go to their therapist and sit down on the long sofa and tell what a horrible parent you are. It's really about giving them someone to talk to so that they can get out what's in here out there. You know, it's about teaching that. There are plenty of programs out that are starting to recognize. Those of you, there's a great book out, Rachel Simmons, about Mean Girls. I think it's about self-educating yourself and finding out the program that best fits your daughter. There are yoga classes out there. There are makeup classes, and there's just a ton of things out there. Be in a state of perpetual education and find the program that works best for you. But if you really have a child that is struggling with who they are, let them go talk to somebody once a month. It'll be the best, you know, money that you've ever spent. Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Of course. Yeah, thank you.
So something that I think that I think that was actually struck me right at the beginning of your talk, you said that the kids, you only know 25% of what's going on with them, and I think that, you know, as much as I don't want to admit it, likely very true, and I think that there's a certain amount of respect for that, right? Because they're kind of becoming these independent little people, and they are big people, and they need to have some independence. So one of the things that I'm struggling with, and I don't know if you have the answer, but I just want to throw it out there, is with the phones, is how much to respect that privacy and how much to try to help, you know, pick the word, like how the right way to use it.
Right. Well, you teach digital responsibility. Number one, respect and privacy is earned, not given. It's earned. It's your phone. When he can afford to pay for it himself, then he can have all the privacy that he wants. No, I'm being serious. You need to hear this. You need to hear this. He can have all the privacy that he wants when he gets a job and he can pay for his own phone. In your house, in your rules, when you're paying for it, because I don't know a 13, 15-year-old out there that can pay for a $1,000 iPhone. He earns that when he earns it. And I know that's not what he wants to hear, and I'm really sorry. You can bash me online later. The reality is respect is earned, and that's really what it is. He earns that. But while they're minors and while the frontal cortex of their brain is not fully developed, he doesn't know. He doesn't know any better. And I'm sorry I'm singling you out. It's just, she asked for it. But truthfully, he doesn't know. His brain is still in development. That's why the age is 10 to 24, because our frontal cortex doesn't finish developing until around the age of 24. So how can he have responsibility and have trust and all of that when his brain says otherwise? He has to earn that. He really does. And when he grows up and he can buy his own phone, then he can have all the privacy that he wants. Privacy is my door's closed. Leave me alone. Privacy is phone, cell phone, there's no such thing as privacy. Let him earn that. Yeah, of course. He'll hate me later, it's okay. Yes, in the back room. Yeah, listen, you know what? Yeah. Right. I know. Right. Well, this is why I say to you, know the laws, know what's in place, and partner with it. Listen, every single one of you, you're the choir, right? It's preaching to the choir. You guys probably all have really good kids, and you probably have good digital responsibility. You know why? Because you showed up tonight. It's the 20% that's sitting at home ignoring their kids that aren't paying attention and suffer from not my child syndrome. I get it. I lived it. I called the mom the night before. There's not a lot you can do about other people. You can deal with what's in your house. You can partner with your school system. You can know the HIV documents. You can know what is required. You can have a relationship with law enforcement, and you can start the dialogue and start the conversation. There is not a lot that they can do, because again, forgive me, it's not against the law to be an asshole. It's just not. I wish it was. But here's, by the way, if we make that, we have a civic responsibility. We can't legislate every behavior. We just can't. And for those of you who question how I feel about the girls, I have accepted my fate. I'm not at a place of forgiveness, but I also recognize that they are 12-year-old girls that made a horrible mistake. And so they will live with that the rest of their lives. I have to live forward with what goes on in my life. So what do you do with the parents who aren't listening? You can't worry about that. You've got to worry about the 20% of the people or the 80% of the people that are here. These are your advocates. Organizations like Scotch Plains Fanwood Parents. You use the army that's already built in your community to say, Anthony, I'm struggling. This is what's going on. You go to your chief of police and you say, listen, I know there's not a lot you can do, but I need your help. You go to your administration, you go to your Board of Ed meetings and say, listen, I'm having a real problem with this child. My child is suffering. And I hope that if you're the squeaky wheel, you will get the answers that you need. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of answers for parents who just don't parent anymore. I want to keep in respectful of time. It's about 8:15. Any more questions? We can't fix what we don't acknowledge. So if you don't ask, I don't know. Am I on a temperature? Yes, ma'am, in the back. Then don't use it. It's a destructive app. You just said it. It's a destructive app. Don't use it. Listen, any app that promotes hiding content from parents, administrators, it's not something that a young child should be using. It shouldn't. I mean, it really is. If it promotes destructive behavior. I think the filters are adorable. I do. And by the way, my daughter Carly uses Snapchat. I don't, but my daughter uses Snapchat. But she's also earned the responsibility. She's 16 years old, she has high honor roll, and last year she buried her sister. I know who's on there, I know who she's talking to. So you have to have, again, the temperature in your room, but anybody under a certain age who has not earned the right to use it shouldn't be using it. And my biggest problem with Snapchat is because that content advertises that it goes away. I'm not saying don't use social media. I'm saying that the majority of our population and our children are not savvy enough to manage something that is advertising going away. I'm not telling you to go home and delete your kid's Snapchat account. You'll never hear me say that. You have to do what's right for your child. I'm telling you that app ended my daughter's life. And for those of you who think it's uncomfortable to delete your daughter's or son's Snapchat account, you know what uncomfortable is? A funeral. Plan a funeral. That's uncomfortable. And that's my feeling. I know it's crude and I know it's rough, but you need to hear it. There is nothing more important than your child's behavior online. And unfortunately, the content goes away for you to see it. It doesn't go away for Snapchat to see it. If Snapchat changes their platform, then by all means, use it. But until they stop doing that, then I don't think our children, particularly tweens, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, they don't need to be. Carly's a junior in high school. She's had that if you want to get into Harvard conversation, don't put it on Snapchat. If she decides to, she saw what it did to her sister, so I'm confident enough in her ability at 16 years old, I'm confident that she can use it. So I'm not a hypocrite, my daughter uses it, but I'm saying for the tweens and the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they don't need it. They don't. Yes, ma'am.
So you have a kid is being bullied. You have a parent that goes to school and is very patient and understanding and teaming with the school to say, help me, my kid's being bullied.
Yep.
You call the parent of the bully.
Yep.
The parent doesn't care. What are we hoping for our school to do? What can our school do to
today, I think you have hope. I really do. I firmly believe that the administration sees that our content is pure, and I think that they see that we're in the right place, and I think that they're going to walk away with a new sense of. So tomorrow, October 3rd, 4th, I think there's a different conversation to be had. Prior to that, I think that you have to understand that they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and this is not easy for me to say, and it doesn't apply to my school. But I think that a lot of times schools are stuck between a rock and a hard place. See, parenting used to take place at home. Now kids show up with their hair not brushed, homework not done, they've got disciplinary issues, they've got behavioral issues, they've got broken homes. I mean, at what point are our schools an education forum and not a parenting forum? So I think, and by the way, if the schools acknowledge that your kid is hated at school, they're responsible. If they do nothing and sweep it under the rug, they're responsible. I think we've got to work with our lawmakers to add another category to HIV and making it a municipal law so that the law enforcement can actually do something when in July your kid is hated, there's another place for you to go. And I really think that that's the solution, is that we need a civic law that holds parents accountable for their behavior, but we have to vote the people in that's going to make that happen. So to answer you, I would say you should learn from what's happened in the past, but today is a new day for you and for whoever else is suffering through this. Trust that you were heard tonight. Trust that you came together as a community. Get involved with your parents and roundtable it. Roundtable your issues and come to your Board of Education with solutions. Maybe it's time that you guys purchase the program Civic Responsibility, and I'll be happy to talk to Anthony and the rest of you guys about it. But come to the table with solutions, roundtable it. This is not a one and done scenario, truly. But I hope that tomorrow is a new day in Scotch Plains Vanwood, and I believe that it is. Anybody else? Y'all can stick a fork in me because I'm done. I'm baking under these french fry lines. Like any self-promoting person, there's merchandise in the back. Make sure you grab it on your way out. But this is how we fund programs. Again, thank you to the parish for having us out. What an incredible evening. You can email us at Mallory's Army. There's brochures back there. Everybody have an amazing evening, and tomorrow is a new day. Thank you.